Happy Halloween, everybody. Excited in between we had the Spring Insight team in between going through all of our kids' candy in advance of the holiday. Wanted to take a minute and talk about scary things that we see on a daily basis on websites. I'm Erica Dickstein with Spring Insight.
And Kristen Cudd with Spring Insight as well.
And Laura Mayer.
Penny Barentine.
Awesome. All right. Super excited to start off our conversation about super scary things. So I'm going to talk about one of the scarier things that I see on a regular basis, which is ghost websites. So by ghost websites, what I mean is one of these websites that you get to and you're like, wait, I know they existed at one point, but do they still exist? And some things that sort of get me thinking that the copyright date is maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years past date, or blog posts that clearly were posted regularly but are really far out of date, or my favorite that I've actually seen recently is social media icons that represent social media platforms that don't even exist anymore, like Google Plus. So these are things that I've seen recently, and I've seen them for organizations that are not ghosts, organizations that are very much active, but for whatever reason, the website is sort of looking rather ghostly. So in terms of like ways to solve this, thoughts, my friends, on how people can keep their sites from looking like a ghost?
I mean, obviously, you got to keep your content updated. I mean, you want people to come to your site and know that you still exist. You're alive and kicking, right? There are no ghosts in this organization. So, you mentioned blog content. So keeping that regularly updated, it's hard to keep up with the content train. But, if your last blog article is from 3 years ago, then anyone visiting your site, unless they know personally that you are still operating, are going to wonder like, oh, that they must not be around anymore. This business must be dead.
Absolutely. And for social media, I'll take this one and say, I mean, the lowest level of obvious is if the social media network no longer exists, don't have the icon. But I would actually take it a step further. If you are not actively promoting your organization on a regular basis on a given social media platform, there's no reason for the icon, right? So, I mean, obviously nobody's promoting themselves on Google Plus because it doesn't exist. But in addition, if you're showing Twitter, which of course is now goes by, right? You want to have the right icon, but for a lot of people, maybe they, when they first set it up, they sent a couple of tweets and then haven't updated it. Are you actively utilizing this social media service? And if so, then it might make sense in the footer. I'm not a big fan of putting social media icons in the header, but put it in the footer but only when it's active. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Who is next up to tell us about their scary, scary website story?
Well, that would be me. And I am going to talk about something that we're labeling alien copy. So in the world of AI, that we are all living in, it can be very tempting to create a lot of content using those tools, right? And we do support that. However, it can make your text, your copy on your website end up sounding like, well, it wasn't written like a human or wasn't written by a human being. And I always joke that if the first 2 words or 3 words of a sentence on a website or a blog article are navigating the complexities of ... then that is a dead giveaway that was generated by AI. And there's nothing wrong with that phrase. It's just that it probably doesn't really sound like you said it, you as the business owner or you as the person behind the brand or anyone on your team. So it just screams inauthentic, and it just is a big red flag that this was generated by someone who wasn't a human being. And you don't want to have alien copy. You want to have copy that resonates with the audience you're trying to reach, that explains how you and your organization or your business solves problems that your potential clients are coming to you for. And they want to connect with you on a human level. We are humans doing work with other human beings. And so you want it to sound real and to speak to people person to person. So if you are having a hard time generating copy, like writing copy is not easy. It's a lot harder than many people think, even if you understand completely what you offer as a service or what problems you solve. It can be hard to put that into words that communicate that in a succinct and clear manner. So, one of the ways you can solve for that is to involve a copywriter, someone who has experience in this realm and can pick your brain and understand what it is that you bring to the table for your clients and communicate that out to your potential audience and anyone visiting your website. So enlisting the help of a professional, having other people look over your copy. If you're like, hey, I've got this, I can write this copy myself, great, go for it, but don't be the only set of eyes on it, because also scary is when you see little, typos and things like that, because it just communicates sort of like this was thrown together and nobody really cared about the image that it's portraying. And having misspelled words and, grammatical errors and things like that matter. This is your front door of your business, so you want it to put the right image out there.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a
definitely.
great point. Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, part of that too is we do at Spring Insight a lot of branding work, right? And making sure that the voice is tight with the brand. So that's a whole nother, you want to use words that are conveying your brand, conveying what your business does. So you want to relate to your user for sure, but just as much, you want to always be on brand and following what your organization, the tone that they put forward.
Yeah. The thing I was going to add, just Kristen, you talked about it. It was just a very brief statement that we do support generative AI, and it is a tool that we use within our toolbox. But when using generative AI never produces final copy. So making sure that the copy that generative AI has produced is basically looked at even as much as an outline. This is what is going to sort of create something that we can then thoroughly customize to make it part of the overall piece, as opposed to sort of this is producing final output, which it just doesn't.
Definitely. Good point.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. Well, I think I'm up next, and I'm talking from the technical perspective of things, and we're bad bones, right? The scary skeleton, and it's the things that our typical users don't necessarily see, but they're the back end bits of our website that might not be as they should. So we're talking about multiple headings, right? Multiple H1 headings. You don't want that. We're talking about no alt tags on images. It's terrible for our unsighted users, and it's really terrible for search engine optimization and being visible in search results. So that's not good either. It's unlabeled form fields. That's something sighted users won't notice, but we will certainly need it for accessibility or anyone that might use a screen reader or something like that. And just all around inaccessible features on your site, things like poor color contrast or lack of focus indicators, pop-up modules or navigation menus that aren't accessible through a tabbing structure. All of these things, they're bad for search engine optimization, they're bad for accessibility, and so they're bad for your users, even in ways we don't always think of. So one of the easiest way probably to address any of these issues is to have a quick audit done. Spring Insight offers those. There are other organizations that could offer them as well, but they're just a quick look at your CMS if you use a page builder, and checks for those things that can very easily be corrected with little work and attention.
And the thing I would add, Laura, is making sure you mention the audit, which is just such a great tool, but mentioning like accessibility is not a one-time thing. It's not a set it and forget it. So it's not just, I would say, not just doing an audit once. Well, yeah, of course, we did that. We did that last year. If your site hasn't stayed static, and unless you have what hearkening back to mine, a ghost site, so doing an audit on a scheduled basis so that you can make sure somebody added some new content, somebody added some new blog posts and wasn't as competent as the people who originally did it maybe, and these things were left out. So making sure that accessibility is a part of, and double checking for those accessible pieces, is something that you do on a regular basis.
Sure, and the requirements change frequently, as we know as well. So what things change, technology changes, so it's good to always do that check.
Yeah, awesome.
which is a great segue into what Penny is talking about today.
Yeah, so you set up an account for social media, your website, your analytics, and then you throw all that in a folder and you don't think about the login again. Because most of us have it bookmarked or tabbed, but then when you bring on a new team member or you outsource to, somebody like Spring Insight, and then we need access. Oftentimes, people don't know who all has access. They don't know where their login information is. They don't know who their hosting provider is or even where their domain's registered. So it's good to just at least once a year, even 6 months, to just double check, make sure you have all of that in a safe location where you can easily access it and share it when you need to.
Yeah, that's a great point. And by the way, I would also add, Penny, it's, if you had somebody who was working for you and now they're no longer working for you, just from good hygiene, even if it's somebody that you trust, taking away their access. So
Right.
keeping the access up to date. And actually, one of the things I'd add, just since we talked about people who are working for you, making sure that whenever anything is created for your organization, it's created using an email that your organization, that people within your organization can access, and that can't be taken with somebody. We've talked to too many people who've lost all of their Google Analytics because it was set up, let's say, by a contractor on that contractor's email, not using a white label email, but they no longer have access to it. So it's one of those things that's easy to do because you're like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, take care of that. But keeping that structure of knowing and understanding how to access your digital assets is so critically difficult. And I think the pain that you see on each of our faces is thinking about all of the clients with whom we're constantly trying to gather that because they have spread to the wind when we've tried to
Yes.
onboard.
The tech
So-
graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to have to dig 6 feet deep to get your login credentials.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good, Kristen. That's
That was a good
copyright right there. There you go.
Awesome. We got that. Well, thank you all so much for coming and chatting today about scary website problems. This has been such a treat. And so thank you for everybody watching. We have such fun talking to you about this. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it. And if you aren't already, do please subscribe to our channel. We release new content every single Tuesday. And try and keep people up to date on what's going on for subject matter experts who have websites and who have marketing operations. But in the meantime, so do subscribe. And if we can help you with any of these scary topics, go onto our site, which you can see in the description here, and sign up for a consultation, and we will have a chat with you about the work that we do and about how we can help you. Thank you so much, and happy Halloween.